Jack Canfield teaches a great question. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say it is? Oh, it's a 7. Okay, great. So what would need to happen to make it a 10?
Welcome to Creativity with Purpose, where we explore the stories, struggles, and sparks that shape our creative lives. I'm your host, Ann Marachek, author, healer, and believer in the power of meaningful expression. Together, we'll dive deep into what it means to create with heart, live with intention, and heal through the beauty of storytelling. My next guest has a company that shows people how to share their wisdom, advice, and inspiration with the world by becoming a published author and media guest. His company, authorsuccess.com, has helped launch such best-selling books as Chicken Soup for the Soul and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, among many others. His authors have even appeared on shows such as The Today Show, Good Morning America, The View, and thousands of podcasts and radio shows around the country. Welcome, Steve Harrison.
And great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
This is a delight. Thank you so much. And in full disclosure, I am one of your authors, and that's how we met. So I am a huge fan of your program and your training and your expertise and your wisdom.
And you're an award-winning author.
This is true. This is true. And thanks to you, because had I not been in your Get Mediagenic and not had your training and your advice to actually take Unpacking the Attic and put it into consideration for these different awards, I would have never known that they even existed. So having you to guide that path for me has been invaluable. It's one of those things where you ask the universe for the right mentors. And when those doors open in front of you, it's still up to you to walk through.
Right.
Right?
So true.
Yeah. And I feel like your mentorship has empowered me to walk through those doors.
Yeah, because that's, I think, a thing that holds people back a lot of times. That's the value of mentors and training. It gets your confidence up, helps you,
Yes.
just like the work you're doing with the podcast here, helping people remember their purpose so they have the courage to walk through those doors. And
That's right. That's right.
because sometimes they're open just a little bit, but they need to be pushed open even more sometimes, and that's up to us.
This is true. This is true. I would have never in a million years, a year and a half ago, when I first joined your group, thought that I would be a published author, or especially be the author of a book that has now won 18 awards. And I got to tell you, I just got back from Hollywood. I was the runner-up for Author of the Year 2025 for Best Inspirational Memoir, which is a delight. But again, I would have never known about those opportunities had I not been in the program. So
That's
thank you so
wonderful.
much for that. Yeah.
It's exciting. No, it's really exciting. And I think what's great, this podcast with all the different people you're interviewing, you're really looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. And, I did your media expertise training.
Right, the National Publicity Summit.
Exactly.
Right.
And it stretches you as an author, as a person, as someone that needs to learn how to express their creativity with purpose, right? And it teaches you to vocalize and to talk to anyone and have these engaging conversations. And it was through my exposure to that program and learning how the media works and how to talk that I actually started this podcast. And I've talked to so many amazing people. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a really, I think I know you're a concert pianist, and obviously there are music schools, and there are teachers who will teach you how to play the scales and the chords and everything else, the technique.
right.
But a lot of these schools, they don't really typically teach you how to get gigs or how to market
Sure.
your recordings, or how to even, I think the
Yeah.
artists will tend to say, well, I'm kind of above having to do that. There's a story I read. Now, you know a lot more about classical music than I, but I'm a very much of an amateur. But there's a story about Chopin that when he taught lessons, you may know this, heard this one, where he'd have these students, and then when it was time to pay him, he would kind of look the other way, and he would just expect them to leave the fee for the lesson on the mantle without him even looking at it. You know, like he, as an artist, right, is above the commercial aspects. And I think just like what you did coming to the publicity summit, where it's like speed dating with the media. We have producers from the Today Show and The View, and we have podcasters, and you have to, in a few, in a few minutes, kind of say, hey, this is what I could do for your audience.
Exactly.
That when artists, whether they're authors or musicians or entrepreneurs, when they actually, because no one, if you're just to know a few things, nobody really should be better at selling you than you,
Right.
really.
Right.
Just
Because
a
it's your
skill.
passion and it's your message.
Yeah, and you're the one they're going to interview. When they
Right.
say, "Oh, I met Ann. I want to interview her. I really like her. I want to go to her concert. I like what she's all about." And so, I think that's what we're trying to do is just let people have their light shine and get past all of the shame of, oh, I'm tooting my own horn or I'm bragging, or that voice, generally speaking, is not really the is not telling you the truth.
Right. Well, and I know you've done a TEDx,
Mhm.
and the subject being, if I remember this correctly, that selling is really serving.
Yeah, I
And I
was going to
think this
title,
speaks to that.
yeah. Yeah, I was going to title it originally Selling is Love. And it's interesting because I the feedback I initially got is selling isn't love. No, are you kidding me? Selling isn't love. So the title I went with was How to Sell Without Selling Your Soul. That's what people seem to like
Okay.
better. But the point I do make in there is selling is love, because I say that to sell, SELL, is to sincerely encourage by listening and loving, to
Yes.
sincerely encourage. So if you and I had a friend who um, wanted to go back to school, maybe they felt like that really was what they always wanted to do, and they also felt if they got that degree, it would be good for their career.
Sure.
So we would listen to them, we would listen to their reasons, and we would find a way to encourage them. Hey, why don't you go take one class? Why don't you get going? Right?
Yeah.
We would start to encourage. And that's what, if you've got something that could help people, that is really the posture for what it is to sell. It is serving. And
Right. It is. It is. And that's what I feel about the empowerment that your courses have given me through writing Unpacking the Attic, because it's my goal, it's my purpose to serve others, to take them through that healing journey that I went on. So
mm,
by showing people a path, right? Leaders don't say, follow me, they just go first,
mm, yeah, that's right.
right?
Right.
So by getting out there, by sharing those healing experiences and showing a path to rewriting your inner dialogue, to your transforming childhood traumas into teachings, right? And
Yeah.
into ways that we can help and serve others. That's my purpose and goal for Unpacking the Attic. And it was that process that I became aware of by your teachings on how do we serve others through our message, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so right that we often people, you say leading is right to go first, but also to share what you learned. Because a lot of times people take for granted what they know. Well, yeah, I did this exercise or I did this work and I lost weight and I kind of got it. I'm moving on. But then you're like, well, hold it, you have a story. You've been through something. You know some techniques. You may not be the number one expert in the world. You may not be a licensed clinical therapist, but you understand how to get people in touch with that inner child and how to heal, or whatever the thing is, whether it's breast
Right,
cancer. And I think to own it and say, hold on, I have something, I have wisdom that others could really learn from. And
exactly.
why don't I talk about it and share it in some format?
Right, exactly. How did you get started on all of this? Is your company is amazing. What was your path? How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, well, in high school, my brother was always very much of an entrepreneur, and he's 3.5 years older, and he actually started taking pictures for the local paper and writing stories for the Gannett News. And when he graduated, you know what? I took over the news writing for
Oh,
the high school sports and whatnot, and different things going on in the school. So. I found that when I'm working as a journalist, as a high school kid, I'm going and asking the principal if they'll sit down and do an interview with me. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, you're for the weekly paper. Yeah, I'll do the interview.
oh,
So I learned, I was kind of mentored really by
sure.
some people in journalism on the basics, and so that was my first exposure to journalism. Then I went and I was an English major at Davidson College, North Carolina in Charlotte. And then I dated this girl for 10 weeks who was from the Philadelphia area. She was a senior, I was a sophomore. And we had this long distance relationship for several years till I graduated. And Bill had gone to school in Philadelphia area. And I said, oh, Bill, he had been starting like a publicity service for authors. And I said, I'll help you out for a couple months because I had sold books door to door during the summer. That was my
Oh, wow,
first,
that's a tough job.
yeah, it was a tough job. They said, hey, it's publishing, it's marketing, it was selling books door to door.
Uh-huh.
But it was good training.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I'll help you out, for a few months, help get this thing off the ground. And here we are now, really soon to be 40 years later.
Wow.
Uh, you know,
Kudos.
Bill and I still work together. I married the girl. We, yeah, so we're still like, it's just been great. It's just been a blessing. So what happened was that I think anytime, when we talk about creativity with a purpose, um, I think one of the things I've seen again and again is it's serving, it's about listening to what people need. One of my very favorite quotes, Robert Collier said, the key to persuasion, marketing, communication is to enter the conversation already going on in people's minds, right? So, um, and what I saw was that when people wanted us to get publicity, yes, we had launched books like Chicken Soup for the Soul and Rich Dad Poor Dad and things, but people often they'd send us their book and they'd want us to help them get publicity. That is, after all, what we were offering. But I often looked and said, hey, boy, it's a shame we couldn't have talked to this author sooner because, boy, a slightly different title or a table of contents that was just laid out a little bit different. Maybe some of the phrases could have been media hooks, and the book could be more mediagenic.
Yeah,
And we should teach authors how to write better books from a media point of view.
right,
And and so I was thinking, well, who do we know that's really got that expertise? And we found an editor from New York who did just I'd known for years, and that's how the program you ultimately got in.
right.
That, and so we were kind of expanded, and I think that's exciting. Is when it's a lot of
Sure.
times you expand, you want to kind of listen for what do people need,
Mhm.
and that's how that came about.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Um, I don't think you know how I found out about your program.
No, tell me.
Okay, so I wrote Unpacking the Attic as my own healing journal as my parents emptied their home. They asked me to empty the home for resale. They were going into assisted living. And seeing those items from my childhood triggered suppressed childhood traumas and memories that showed me there was a lot of healing and forgiving that needed to happen within the family dynamic and took me on this journey. Well, I then put the manuscript in a file cabinet. It lay there for 8 years.
Oh.
And in the interim, my father passed away. And one night at 3 a.m., I was awoken with a message in my mind. The title of your book is Unpacking the Attic. And
Wow.
I'm going, thank you. What book? No clue. And I got this mental flash of that manuscript in the file cabinet, and I heard the words, it's time. So
Mm,
the next morning, I'm scrolling emails. In my inbox is a letter from the Steve Harrison Publishing Company.
wow.
I
Wow.
had not reached out. I didn't even know you existed at that point in my life. And my
That's
husband, like, it's a sign you have to call. So I called, I talked to Joe, and he said, well, read me the introduction of the first two chapters, which I did because I told him it's done. It's been written 8 years ago. And he listened, and there's this long silence that I'm thinking, uh-oh, I've embarrassed myself. And he said, you've touched something really profoundly deep within me. And he says, you need to share this. And then he said, it's time.
wow.
Same two words I was left with from Spirit. And so we signed up. And the journey from taking something that was just my own healing manuscript, just random thoughts of memories, right? Into a book that actually takes people on this healing journey and shows them the process. I never wrote the processes down that I went through to heal. I just wrote the memories down. So I had to flesh that all out and walk my readers through, okay, and then this is how we don't stay in the trauma. This is how we move forward through it, right?
No.
So with the coaching and the training, I ended up 9 months later in your program with now an 18 award winning book. So your process does work, my dear friend.
Well, it's so great. We're fortunate, as you know, to just have brought together a great team of coaches and editors and to make that process really sing. But I think, but you're not alone. I mean, I think it's very normal, actually, for a lot of times people beat themselves up and they say, well, gosh, I started writing this book and I just haven't finished. And and they beat themselves up.
Yeah.
And, when I ask people, like, how long you've been thinking about this book, I mean, it's very common, 8 years, 10 years, 20
Oh,
years.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and, and I think with the comfort you can find is that, hey, it's been marinating inside you all
Yeah.
this time
Yeah.
and you've gotten going and it was time. 18 awards and good, really all these great 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and I think that it's a question of marrying the following spirit. I believe that definitely, and marrying the creativity with craftsmanship,
Yes.
making it the best you can make it. And a lot of people,
Exactly.
you know
Exactly. Like I have a bachelor's and master's degree in music theory composition. I invested a tremendous amount of time and effort to learn those skill sets, right? And I'm a concert pianist, as you know, and I know you play piano.
yeah.
So that was understood to me that I needed to invest in myself to learn the craft. And I think people need to understand that good writing is a craft. Uh, that creativity with purpose, the purpose, the message you want to share should drive the heart, right? But nevertheless, it's a craft, it's an art. And one needs to invest in themselves in that education in order to move forward. Because with everything, there is a skill set, there's a vocabulary, there are connections one needs to make within the industry, there are mentors one needs to seek out. When you start a new career, which authorship is a career and it's a skill and it's an art, you need to find your mentors. And I was so blessed and so gifted that the next morning there you were. So, was that spirit guided? I believe so.
Mhm. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
seemed quite abundantly evident, the way things unfolded for me and continue to unfold. So, that's a blessing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've just seen that in my life as an entrepreneur that I mean, because I mean, but even back when I was selling books door to door, I just remember being terrified, and
Oh, sure.
fortunately I was around some real people of real strong faith, of just, and I remember, one of these leaders, I said, well, how do you keep going? With all the no's and they said, you know what? Just focus on loving and serving people, keep them happier than, when you first said hello, you leave them happier than when you first arrived. And when you come from that place and you're trusting God to work through you, it's amazing how much fun you have. It's amazing how much freedom you have. It's amazing how much joy you have. And ironically, often it's amazing how much you sell if you're in sales or, whatever you're doing. It's amazing how good the results can be when that
Mm.
isn't your very first priority.
Right, right, right. I think that listening skill is so, so important
Yeah.
because you can't serve someone until you find out what they need, right?
So true. It's so true. And getting feedback.
Mhm.
Ken Blanchard, I was interviewing him. He said feedback, he's the author of The 1 Minute Manager. He said feedback is the breakfast of champions, you know? And it's an interesting thing because it all begins with you. You're writing
Sure,
the book for your reasons, and that's important. Without you, there's no book. And at the same time, after a while, as you go down the road, you do want to get feedback from experts, editors, people that
absolutely.
are in the business, but then also what's the average Joe or Joanne think as they read this story,
Right.
And I find there's different kinds of feedback. It's like friends and family in a way, they'll be great because they want you to look good. Like but on the other hand, they're so close to you. They see you as in the way that they see you. They don't see you sometimes. So you have to kind of, there's, you have to exercise, discernment about, and you want to listen to for trends on things. And what I also find in the very beginning, when you're initially starting, it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to say, "Oh, I just don't think I can do this." So go
Mhm.
to don't be like a second grader who's drawn a drawing and go to, and go to a senior art teacher and say, "What do you think of this?" That art teacher would never say to the second grader, "This sucks. You can't you got to color within the lines." They'd say, "It's wonderful that you've expressed yourself," and that gives you air to keep going. And ask people, what's one thing you like?
Mhm.
What's one I want to hear negative feedback later or ways to improve later, but what's one thing you like? You really are good at telling stories. Wow. I can That keeps you going, you know?
It does.
And then it is time to say, okay, glad that you love my stories. I've written, these pages. So what's uh Jack Canfield teaches a great question. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say it is? Oh, it's a 7. Okay, great. So what would need to happen to make it a 10?
Right.
A little more research here, or maybe some transitions or things. And so
Mhm.
listening, getting feedback makes a big difference. That's how you write a great book or how you create anything really great.
Right, exactly. It is. It is. And that willingness to be in a collaborative spirit, I think, a little bit. Um,
Yes.
it's very important to keep the in mind that you are ultimately trying to create the best product you can
Mhm.
so that your message resonates the strongest and you can serve people with it, right?
Yeah.
So if you have the mindset of, oh, this is my creation and I'm going to do what I do, that's not serving others
Right.
because you have to realize that your mentor is gifting you of their time and their wisdom and their years of expertise in an area that you're new to. I mean, I know what I know. I can play the piano, right? Being an
Yeah.
author was stepping into a new set of skills.
Mhm.
So be grateful for the gift of the time that your mentors are willing to be gracious enough to share with you, right? And take that to heart and understand that you're both in the same boat. Your ultimate goal should be to produce the best possible product to serve others and to launch your message.
Yeah, and then also, it kind of actually not only do you end up with a better product, but you
Mhm.
can start, for example, on social media and saying, "Hey, start we call it a book launch team, right? A beta team, hey, everybody, I'm working on this book. Which of these titles do you like? Which of
Sure.
these covers do you like? What do you think of this story?" And And people love to help and give feedback. And then you start saying, gosh, I didn't really think that title was going to be the one, but everybody seems to like it. That, I'm going to probably go with that then. It pulls you out, it pulls you towards better ideas.
Right,
Often.
right, right. It's interesting. I just did that this past weekend. I was in Phoenix for a 3-day um, public speaking, I guess, keynote speaking coaching. And I'm penning my second book right now. And my working title was Symphony of the Self. And then the subtitle being Compose Your Life. And I proposed that to several people, and I got a lot of people say, flip it. Make the
Mm,
title Compose Your Life, Symphony of the Self.
there you go. There we go. There you
So
go.
I,
Yeah.
everybody said, well, I don't like classical music, and symphony right off the bat tells me, I kind of go, no, I don't listen to symphonies, which that's just a metaphor, right?
I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, you would know more about this, but the sense I always get of the classical musicians is that Beethoven and Mozart and Bach, they just did their thing and they were great and they were geniuses and here is what they've created, right? And I don't know, maybe, but what I like is like I'm a big Stephen Sondheim
Oh,
fan,
right.
right?
Sure. Mhm.
So in that show, there's a show called Company
Yes.
where
Right.
single guy and his married friends are all like, hey, Bobby, and he
Right.
sings this great song at the end of that called
Yeah.
Being Alive,
Right.
right?
Being alive. I remember it well. Yes.
And so I was reading the Sondheim biography, and he said that when they were doing previews, because these Broadway shows, they do
Oh,
previews,
sure.
the
It's like
character
having
would
a beta reader.
That's right, the beta reader. And he would sing Being Alive. And he basically, the conclusion of the song was, you know what? I'm not getting married. I'm just going to stay. And everybody was so unsatisfied with that conclusion. And here's Stephen Sondheim, who is a bachelor, who's just like, you know what? I mean, screw you. But they changed it literally at the last minute. He changed a couple verses about, help me, come into my life, and it's a winner.
Yeah, it just people didn't want that ending. It didn't resonate with them.
Right. Give the audience matters, Do you want, I mean, they say Man of La Mancha, it wasn't doing well until they got rid of the intermission because that forced people to hear. People were walking out at intermission and they were never hearing to dream the impossible dream.
Right, right, right. Oh my gosh.
Little details of feedback, the audience matters, and the
Yes,
audience and it feeds the creativity.
sure it
It's
does.
part of the purpose, right, of the creativity.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Um, I remember a quote from music history. Yeah, this is ancient history when I was getting my degrees. Tchaikovsky, and he wrote a letter to his mentor and said, "I've never actually composed a note. I've only just taken dictation."
Wow.
And he wrote by what he called channeling divine inspiration with his
Okay.
music coming through. And then you contrast that with Brahms, who wrote to Clara Schumann, his dear friend and love of his life. And he said, I lament at how difficult it is for me to compose. I write and rewrite and throw away, and it takes me years to
Mm,
create. And so you have two geniuses on opposite ends of the spectrum. One
mm,
that downloaded spontaneously and felt like he was just hearing the finished product in his mind and taking dictation, and the other that was in a laborious, elongated process of self-doubt and rewritings.
mhm.
So I know that creative space can be anywhere in between those two extremes. And
Yeah.
yet they were both communicating to a trusted person in their life about their struggles or about their creative process and wanting feedback. So even those fabulous geniuses were reaching out, right, to other people in their lives and expressing their trials, their process, and getting that feedback. And I thought that was a wonderful thing that in music history, they weren't just teaching us dates you know, dates and facts. You fall asleep with your head in the textbook.
Right, right,
There-
right.
but actually the emotional connection and the process that these great composers went through. And
Yeah.
I think knowing the process and getting that feedback is really, really valuable, no matter whether you're one of the world's great geniuses or you're a brand new newbie trying to write your first book.
Right. Totally, totally right. And it's also, nowadays too, with part of is building your following, the more people that, you can acknowledge a lot of people. In fact, most books, acknowledgments, there's a lot of people to acknowledge because it does take a lot to do a book, takes different skill sets. And, you can invite people to be part of your mission, and
Right.
um, give you feedback on the book, and you can mention them in the acknowledgments, and they'll probably buy a book. They'll probably might buy some copies for friends. Here they are mentioned, and
Right, that's right. I got my name
yeah,
in a book.
so the marketing, and the feedback, all these things can go hand in hand nowadays with social media.
Absolutely. And I think social media, it seems like each branch of social media has its own type of personality.
Yeah.
Like I see LinkedIn as like your business connections, and Facebook is like talking to your friends and family. They have different vibes and different purposes, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people also have to find too, like what works for them. Some people are really good on video. Some people just can't stand doing video. So then do text posts,
Yeah.
find part of it is to operate. You don't have to do, we often say to people don't try to do every channel at once. Pick a channel, get good at it. Um, but it's, I think a lot of times people overwhelm, it's easy to get overwhelmed today. It's like an age of distraction and overwhelm. And the
Right.
question is,
Scrolling.
yeah, but it's useful to be like, hey, what are you focused on? What are you really focused on nailing?
Yeah. Well, tell me, what would your advice be to an author on how to get publicity? What would you say to a new author?
I would say the first thing you should think about doing is who is the reader, right? Who are we trying to attract?
Uh-huh.
Are we trying to sell our book to music teachers? Are we trying to attract, you know, are we selling it to piano students? Are we selling it to people that love pop music? Maybe all of those. And, who's the audience, right? And so then think about, okay, so then what do they read? What do they listen to? What podcasts? What shows? What magazines or blogs? Um, Even social media, where are they on social media? And what you're trying to do is trying to identify influencers does somebody have a podcast for musicians? I'm talking to one right now, right? Yeah.
There
So
you go.
there you go. And what you want to do then is we said that a key to selling, SELL, is sincerely encouraged by listening and loving. Well, you listen in publicity, that means you actually listen to the podcast, listen to the show, or at least read the description and what kinds, trying to look for the pattern, the kinds of guests they interview. If you notice, wow, this person interviews a lot of artists on creativity. Okay, great. Then you kind of have an idea then of how to approach them. You know what they say yes to. Let them know you're an artist. Let them know your unique slant on creativity. We often teach people to have a hook, which is I often position that as really like if we were do a TV show doing a commercial, we might say, coming up, we're going to teach you how to play the piano. Coming up, when you come back next, we're going to teach you how to play the piano in 5 minutes or less. You'll be able to play a very famous song. Like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I think I'll hang out, come back, right? So
Right.
that's a hook. And the hook could be 5 foods to that will give you more energy.
Sure.
I want to learn those. Okay, I'm coming back. So if you can give that show, that magazine writer or blogger, hey, let's do a thing about 5 foods that can, give you more energy. Now they've got, okay, this sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times people, they just don't put themselves forward either because they don't know what to say or do. But again, you're just trying to serve them because the thing is, these media, they need guests, they need fresh guests. They have to do shows. They have to, and so they're
Right.
looking for people that fit their what they need. And I think what you want to do is really try to you know, Google, look for some shows, say, gosh, this is interesting. Here's a show on breast cancer. I like this show. I'm gonna put my hat in the ring, and reach out to them.
Right. I love that. I love that. Um, Part of this I hear, especially when you're talking about the hooks, is creative messaging.
Mhm.
So whether you're writing, whether you're promoting a book, how do you create persuasive messaging? What would your advice be to that?
Well, enter the conversation going on in their mind. So, like, we had a motivational speaker one time, and she wanted to. I said, "What do you want to talk about?" She goes, "I want to talk about having a positive attitude and setting goals." I said, "Okay."
Okay.
Thing is, there's a lot of people that want to talk about that, right?
Right. That's pretty
So,
generic.
pretty generic. So, how could we make it more unique? And a lot of times, the way you can make something unique is apply it to an interesting situation
Mm,
that people have. Like, what's a conversation that people are having? And we were talking, she said, well, a lot of people don't like their jobs. I mean, there's a survey that 80% of people don't like the jobs they're in. I
mhm.
said, okay, well, why don't we do a show, How to Love the Job You Hate? And yeah, I could talk about that because then they have to have a positive attitude and motivate themselves and that.
Right.
And what do you do when you're in a job that you hate? So now that was unique to her. That was really a different, oh gosh, who else do I know that talks about that? That's different. So realize you can create different hooks um based, I mean, there's an unlimited number of topics or
Sure.
situations that people are in that you could talk about, and you want to propose that. The other thing I would say is a lot of times, what's the outcome that people want?
Mhm.
What do they want to be able to do? Maybe they want to be a best-selling author. You're gonna, okay, the secret to becoming a best-selling author, three secrets, or, what is it that they want? Um, the word you, I find to be very helpful. How, two things you can do
Yeah.
to to take your relationship to the next level.
Yeah.
That's, you is a powerful word that a lot of people just don't use nearly enough in their messaging.
Yeah. Well, let's face it, most people want to talk about themselves.
Yeah,
It's the what's in it for me, right? Why should I spend my valuable time in this world where there's a clamor for my attention 24/7 on the media, right?
yep.
What is it that is my takeaway? Why should I care? Why should I spend my time here?
Yeah, I find the two are really important. You, if I were had to number like you, in a way, you should use the word you 80% of the time. And then
Uh-huh.
if you're writing a memoir, obviously you're going to write I a lot more.
Sure, of
But
course.
but in your messaging though, it's really in service of have you ever felt like you knew you needed to practice more as a musician, but you just didn't feel like it anymore? And well, I was there too. But I found a way of doing it that then, got me this and this. And so now I want to share it with you, right? So it's that UI way of speaking. So it's very intimate, and we're all our favorite topics. For all of us, our favorite topic is ourselves.
Sure.
We're in what we're trying to do, and that's how we process life through our own thoughts and situations and everything. And so when you speak to the reader and say, "Have you ever wondered?" Well, here's what I found. I want to share with you a story. Okay, I'm more interested now.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And having those stories, I think, is more memorable than lists of facts. I
Yeah,
think people engage more emotionally through stories and they remember them.
yeah,
Where just with me with music history, do I remember all of the dates when the works of Tchaikovsky were published? No. I can rely on Google for that, right?
Right.
But I do remember the emotion of the interpersonal letters, right? The actual stories that were presented about the lives of these famous composers. And so that stuck. And I think you would learn through stories much more vividly than you do through facts and numbers,
Yeah, really true.
which is where the craft of the art of writing is so valuable, and it gifts the world with your stories. Your stories matter.
Yeah, and a lot of times, people I mean, there's in a way, there's as it's written, there's nothing new under the sun, right? But the new thing is your story.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe you're talking about persistence. Sure, there's a lot of people who have talked about persistence, but your story with your details about it,
right.
um, they people haven't heard that, and they want that. They want new, fresh stories.
Right, exactly, exactly. And I think because we're such social beings and we need that social interaction, it helps underpin that need as well. It
Yeah,
connects community.
it's funny when I do a couple times a year do retreats with Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul co-author, and you're right that people often do not tell stories, or I find there's one of two extremes people go to. Either they're constantly talking about themselves, even beyond what a memoir would require. It's just constantly me, and it's a turnoff.
Sure.
And but the other extreme people go is they give all this advice and things, but they never really talk about themselves. And
Ah,
when you're an author, that is what you're in a different game. In other words, if you're teaching or you're a psychologist,
right,
you're in business. I mean, most of us have been told, don't talk about yourself. Be focused on the person. And now, though, when you're writing a book or you're communicating, people want to know about you.
yeah.
And so a lot of times, sometimes people say, well, how many stories do I have to tell? Because I don't want to bore people. I said, if you're worried about that, it means you're not telling enough stories. Um, and actually we have to kind of force people. You're not telling enough stories about you and how you discovered this.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So
Because that the revelation is from the story,
that's
right?
right.
Because you lived the story that you have the wisdom and the revelation to share.
And then that's where the reader can feel like, oh, she's just like me.
Yeah,
She gets it. She gets she can you're connecting with that reader by sharing your own story. Yeah.
right, 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 right. Well, speaking of your own story, what is your passion project right now? What is your creativity with purpose?
Yeah. Well, we're doing a couple of things. We're now helping our clients get more. Well, here's what's interesting. I've seen where if we can make it to the extent, as best possible extent where people can show up and we do the rest. So where we can make it where authors and speakers don't have to do the tech stuff and everything, usually goes quite well, right? And so that's why we help people publish books, and we do all kinds of videos and things. And so an extension of that now is we have something that is called Author Visibility Accelerator, where we're making it so the client shows up 1 hour a month. We
Huh?
interview him or her. It's a structured interview. We ask them various questions, and then we create from that 1 hour interview social media posts, video, text, 10 pieces of content, and then put it out there for them. So it really, other than showing up 1 hour a month and then approving what we've put together, they don't have to
Sure.
do anything else. And that's, I think it's just really exciting because so many people aren't putting things out there because they either don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it, they don't have time to do it, they don't know what to, sometimes they're not talking quite about the right things and the right way to sell the book effectively. So this is really exciting because it's what so many people need, and the team's doing a great job.
Well, that is exciting. So again, you identified a need
Mhm.
and you're trying to serve your clients, your authors, by filling in that gap where they're falling short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where selling, but really entrepreneurship, business is service, right? What else do people need that makes, is a need you can fill?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been really good. Plus, it's all, things are, where can you bring things, where's something complicated that you can help to make simple for others?
Mhm. Right. And I know just with my own journey, I started my YouTube channel because my granddaughter, well, let me back up a little bit. I used to tell my daughter when she was a toddler stories about Albert the raccoon. And he lived in the enchanted forest and he had Jimmy Squirrel as a friend and he was adopted by Mother Skunk, and you get the gist. But the point of each story was to teach her concepts of mindfulness and compassion and open conversations to subjects as living in community, being compassionate to others. Is bullying ever accepted? But rather than trying to talk to a younger child on these big topics, I had the animals live by example, the teachings, and then we would talk about it. So she grew up having these conversations about how the animals interacted and what could they have done better and what did they do well and this sort of thing. So fast forward, she's now a mother. I have a granddaughter. And when my granddaughter was about 4, my daughter said, ask Grammy about Albert. Well, I thought she forgot all about these little stories, right? So I started writing them down for the first time. And that actually began my author journey, is just to write down these stories that I had taught to my daughter and then more expanded upon it for my granddaughter. So now a couple years later, she comes to me and she says, Grammy, I love Albert so much. You have to share him with all the children of the world.
Wow, that's great.
Well, okay. So how do I do that? So my husband and I sat and thought about this and we thought YouTube. I can narrate these stories, I can put them up there, and we follow them each with a discussion and questions. And that helps you focus on the teaching and apply it to your own life. And we can do this where anyone, anywhere in the world, can log in and watch these stories for free, right? So now that's how my channel started, with my best friends live in the woods and the stories of the enchanted forest and the animals and the teachings of mindfulness and compassion. And we now have followers from India and Bangladesh and Morocco and France and UK and globally, right?
That's wonderful.
And it's beautiful. And right now we're gaining about 1,000 subscribers a day.
Mm,
And of course, there's more people watching that are actually subscribing. We just hit 4,500,000 views, which
wow.
is extraordinary. So from a little 5-year-old saying, Grammy, you need to share Albert with all the children of the world, it has my my desire to gift, right, has taught me and has grown me into this platform. And so it was that desire to gift that
Mhm.
broadened my ability and my skills in the media. And I think that is applicable for all media. Like now I'm learning how to do Instagram and I'm learning how to do Facebook. So you should never stop investing in yourself and in your own personal growth and in your skill sets, because ultimately those skill sets are how we serve others. It's how we
Yeah.
reach our audience. It's how we reach people who want our message. And the
Perfect.
fact that you're facilitating that, I think, is fabulous because not everyone has it within them to say, okay, I can learn this. I can do this. If I put in the time and effort, I can learn to do this media, right?
Yeah, and what we do is we say, look, we'll do it for you for 6 months. And
Hmm.
after that, you may feel like, hey, you know what, I can do this on my own now. You've really kind of shown me how to do it,
Yeah.
which is great because we're wanting to teach people to fish, not just fish.
Yes.
But yeah, but it changes their perspective of, oh wow, there's a lot I can talk about here, and I see I'm encouraged. And so yeah, that's
Right,
great.
right.
What a
So
cool thing though that you followed that voice, and you wanted to serve. And I find I once asked Robert Kiyosaki, did you know you were going to sell millions of books when you were writing it? He said, no, I
yeah,
just wanted to make it the best I could and do
right,
the best I could at getting it out there.
right.
And what I find when you do that, obviously you're not necessarily going to sell millions of books or get millions of views, every time, but good things happen. There are surprises. There's hidden rewards that emerge.
There are. And what you ask the universe, what you manifest is very powerful. So I have always been focused on please send me the mentors, send me the teachers.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll say yes. I'll open those doors and I'll walk through. And that doesn't mean I'm not anxious or frightened or apprehensive, but I do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because once you walk through the door, you find out, oh, it's actually nicer here than I imagined. It's not scary after all, right?
Right, right.
Because you're walking through with mentorship, with people who have done it before. If you want to accomplish something, learn from someone who's already accomplished it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally right. Totally right. Now, do you get nervous when you're performing if you're doing a piano concert? Do you get nervous right before you go on?
You know, I used to.
Mhm.
I used to get so much stage fright that I couldn't even play for my husband. And in the process of writing Unpacking the Attic, I actually remembered the source of that angst. I
Interesting.
had a piano teacher that set me up for failure. I was
Mhm.
in third grade, and she was supposed to be accompanying all the Girl Scouts at the school for this big assembly, Christmas carols, and she had this stack of music that she was supposed to go in and perform. Well, 2 hours before that performance, she dropped off the stack of manuscripts at my front door and told my mom that I had to go play the show.
Oh.
In third grade. Now, yes, I was a bit of a prodigy, but nevertheless, this was concert level adult music, right? I was still playing big note music, if you know the analogy, right? It was hard for my little eyes to even see the notes, right? So I had, at this point now, I had an hour and a half before we had to leave to go to the school for this
Sounds like a
performance.
horrible dream I'd want to wake up from.
Exactly. And in third grade, did not have the internal confidence to tell her no, which I should have done. That I'm sorry, your lack of preparation is not my emergency, right? But I didn't have those skill sets as a third grader. So I just did what I was told at that age. So I had actually was able to sight read through all of this music miraculously. But and so I was feeling pretty good about myself. I went to the performance and I opened the music and I started playing da 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 da. And the music teacher that was conducting the kids looked at me and she started conducting 85 times faster
Well,
than I was able to play it, right?
right, right,
I had gotten to where I could play the song in the hour and a half, which I think for a third grader is pretty remarkable, but not at those tempos. And she
right.
took off and had them singing like, at 200 on the metronome instead of my
Right,
84,
right.
right? And I knew I couldn't keep up. I couldn't even turn the pages fast enough
Wow.
to keep up with the pace that she was having them sing. So I burst into tears and I ran from the auditorium and I hid in the locker room. And I ended up walking home
Mm.
from
Wow.
because I was so embarrassed I didn't want anyone to see me. Well, I began to associate performance with humiliation,
Mm.
right? So in that self-evaluation of going back through childhood memories, I realized don't stay in the trauma. Back up now as an adult with your new perspective and realize that you were set up for that failure. You did
Yeah.
everything you possibly could with the skill sets you had, right? To accommodate her. But what I should have said was no. And my mother should have said no, right?
Right.
She
Right.
should have been my voice and my advocate at that age. So I had to say, all right, that was not my failure.
Yeah.
That was, in a way, her betrayal because she had to have known that that was not going to go well for me.
Right.
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 And so that caused me to be very angry with her, but ultimately I forgave her. And in that forgiveness and in that understanding that I need to rewrite my internal dialogue and disassociate performance from humiliation because it really wasn't causational from me, right? That scenario happened. I need to actually feel good about the fact that I tried. I did remarkably well for a third grader, and the expectations were unrealistic.
Totally right. Yeah.
Right.
What a
So
powerful.
that's part of the process that I went through with many, many, many things. There's basically five childhood traumas: rejection, abandonment, humiliation, injustice, and betrayal that all humans experience at some point, right? Even though our details are different.
Yep.
So it's that process of reevaluating, disassociating yourself with the emotion,
Mm.
and learning to rewrite those internal dialogues with an adult perspective and the heart to forgive the people that were in those scenarios.
Yeah, I love that you
So,
brought it full circle with forgiveness towards the teacher.
right,
Boy, but that's quite a story of, as you say, humiliation. I can't believe you were put in that situation. I mean, I found about just about a year ago. I like to, play a few minutes each day, play some Billy Joel,
sure.
Elton John, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to play an open mic. And an open mic, you go to like a bar and you
Yeah,
play, at this open mic, you play three songs. And I'm like, I'm
okay,
going to go play three songs and I'm going to sing, I'm going to play the keyboard. And because I find, part of I have to have a deadline. If I don't have a gig, I'm playing around, but I'm not really learning the song in a commanding way. And well, okay, well, now I've got a show, now I've got a goal. And I set this date and I said, I don't want anybody I know to be there. I want to walk in, and I'm also not getting up behind the microphone saying, hey guys, this is my first time. I'm going
right.
to carry my keyboard in there like this is what I do.
Own it, right?
Right. Total, fake it till you make it. I was going to fake it. And I get there, I walk in, and I was first of all, but actually the weekend before, I said, this thing is on Monday night. I am terrified. I mean, I can play the song.
Sure,
I've got it really, I'm over prepared, but I am terrified. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm praying about it. I'm like, Lord, what is this about? I'm terrified. I'm going to go to a bar where there's six people who don't know me. This
right,
isn't at all related to my business. There is nothing that if, and I was like, you know what? I just don't want to make a mistake. I'm going to be so pissed if hit a wrong note and this and this. And I'm like, man, you really are full of perfection, of just this. It has to be perfect. Where's that, where's that coming from? Right.
right,
And, and so just kind of, I'm like, well, Lord, how do I do this? And he's like, well, you already know how to do it. It's how you do everything else. Follow the Spirit, follow the Holy Spirit. And one moment at a time. All right. Well, you know what though? I got the keyboard that night, went over there, and I felt peace about it's going to be what it's going to be, you know?
Yeah,
And it really
right.
went great. Wasn't perfect,
Sure.
but it went great. And it was such a sense of triumph to do
Sure.
something that was so scary out of my comfort zone, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, to play, music in front of real musicians. This is what they do, and so it
Right.
was yeah, but I really learned also, boy, Steve, you really are very concerned about what other people think. You know, it was like, well, it's a little good personal growth here.
Yeah. Doing things that are hard stretches us,
Yeah,
right? And it's like the rubber band. You never really go back to where you were,
it's true. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because there was a sense when because I've since did it and I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I do now. I wasn't as terrified. It's
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
yeah.
That's just like when I took your Be Mediagenic course. The first couple of interviews, my palms were sweating. By the end of the course, I was having so much fun,
Yeah.
right? I was focused on meeting all these fascinating, interesting people and what do you do and how can I serve? And I, I found it very, very, very fun, which I'm sure is part of the reason why I started my own podcast, Creativity with Purpose, because having those engaging conversations and getting these other viewpoints and perspectives from truly creative, successful people, I find very engaging and very wonderful.
Yeah, you're right. It feeds you. You're learning things and being reminded of things. And no, it's great. It's
Right.
fantastic. Well, congratulations on your show and all your progress with the book and everything.
Thank you. It's been a continuing journey of self-discovery, of gifting, of forgiving, of learning. And I will continue to move forward with this because I'm finding it's a great extension of my message. And it's a beautiful way to connect with other creative people. So it's it's been a lovely journey that I will continue to pursue.
Great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, anything that you want to express to our audience before we log off?
Well, if our company is authorsuccess.com. If people are interested in learning how to write, publish, or promote a book, just go to authorsuccess.com. And we even have a free report there on six-figure mistakes authors make. And so if you're thinking about writing like a nonfiction book or marketing a nonfiction book you have, check us out at authorsuccess.com. That would be great.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. This has been delightful. Really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Anne. Really loved doing this. So this was great.
Thank you.